Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. A little later in the program, Todd Shepard is going to talk to me about the Evie Hudak recall. But first, you know, there was an election a couple weeks back. Did you vote? Did you vote only once? Why would you vote only once? From the Secretary of State's office, Suzanne Staiert, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jon.
All right, this was the first election under the new election law, which makes everything mail-in ballots. Now, we've had mail-in ballots before. What was different about this last election a few weeks ago?
Well, there were a couple of changes that were in the legislative agenda last year, and one had to do with the inactive failed to vote category. In the past, the only people...
Inactive failed to vote category. What is the inactive failed to vote category?
So in the past, if you received a mail ballot, but you didn't vote it, then in the next election, you wouldn't receive a mail ballot. You would have to go to the polls to vote. So this time, the legislature eliminated that category. So everybody who's an active voter or in Colorado, everybody who's a registered voter, got a mail ballot.
Whether they're active or not. So the way to do this is if you voted last time by mail, you'll get a mail ballot this time.
Right.
But if you didn't vote last time, does it mean you couldn't vote? I'm talking before they changed the law. Does that mean you couldn't vote?
No, you could vote, but you needed to go to a polling place or a voter service center to vote.
Could you call up and get an absentee ballot or something like that?
You could. You could actually go online and reactivate at any time by just submitting an update to your registration.
So the old law was if you didn't vote in the last election, you're not going to get a mail-in ballot.
Right.
But if you wanted to, you go back online, say, hey, I'm over here, send me a mail-in ballot. Or if you get none, you could either go online and get one or go down to a polling place and vote.
Right.
So you could still vote. I want to make that clear.
Certainly.
All right. The new law came in, which did all sorts of things for residency requirements and same-day voter registration and good stuff. What did it do for mail-in ballots?
So now the law says all active voters get a ballot. So even the people who didn't vote in the last election or the one before that or haven't voted in 10 years will still get a ballot delivered to them at each and every election.
All right. I want to see if I understand this. So if I didn't vote last year, if I haven't voted for 10 years, I still get a ballot.
Yes.
What if I'm dead? Do I still get a ballot?
Well, hopefully we have found that in the system and eliminated
does
that
that always
voter.
work?
It doesn't always work. It works with records inside the state. So if people pass away within Colorado, we're pretty quick about matching those up. But people who...
All right, so if I go to Wyoming and keel over there, I can still vote here after I'm dead?
Hopefully we're catching that too, but we might not be catching it as quickly.
What about if I just moved? What if I up and moved? Are you still going to send me a ballot?
It depends. If you up and moved and you changed your address with the post office, then what should happen is the clerk should send you a card indicating that they have updated address from the post office. If you did it within the county, the clerks change you automatically to your new address. If you go outside the county, they send you a card, ask you to update your address in the system. If you don't, and then they send you a ballot and it bounces back from that address, then you go inactive. It's complicated. I'm sorry.
Why do you women have to be so complicated? All right, so let me see if I get this. We used to be, and I remember this as a kid, it was wonderful. We had an election day, not an election month. You would go there. If you're going to be out of town, you could get an absentee ballot or vote early. But you know, you'd go and you do it on that day. Now everybody's going to get a mail-in ballot, but is it secure? Do we know it has integrity? And I want to show a clip from something that our investigative reporter Todd Shepard did. Now, he works for me, so therefore he lives in a really bad apartment, which he can afford. And one day he just noticed what happened in the mailroom of his apartment building, and apparently this happens all over. Let's take a look at it right now.
Now I want to show you something interesting here. This little spot right here is where people can put their mail if it got delivered to the wrong box. So they just set it on this shelf and the mailman picks it up here the next day. So let's take a quick look at what we've got here misdelivered. There's an Anthem bills, XL Energy. Hey, there's a ballot. Denver Public Schools, Denver Public Schools. Oh, there's a second ballot. And there's a third ballot. And they're just laid up here, easy peasy, with some coupons. You know,
Easy peasy with some coupons. Now, I live in a house. I got a ballot, and I got a ballot for the guy who lived there before me. How common is this to have these orphan ballots floating in the mail like grocery store coupons?
Well, we receive a lot of complaints about it. How common it is hard to track. What happens is when you change your address with the post office, that change of address lasts for a certain amount of time, and then it expires. Or maybe the person never did change their address. Maybe they just moved and they notified, the people that were relevant to them that they moved, but they didn't notify the post office. So then those ballots continue to be delivered, and until there is a bounce back, a non-delivery, that voter will not be removed from the list.
Not to put too subtle a point on it, but that was just one day at Todd's apartment. He could have voted another 3 times. I could have voted another 1 time in my own little house. How is this secure? What is to keep me from doing this? What is the mechanism that prevents me from submitting that ballot, which isn't really mine? I mean, they're everywhere.
Oh, it's against the law.
Yes, so is speeding. So what is there to prevent me from doing it? I mean, they'll never catch me. I mean, in that instance, there were 3 ballots, and that was just one night. So 3 ballots a night for who knows how long. Nobody's going to catch that person, are they?
Well, the other catch that we have for the integrity of the system is the signature verification. So when you submit a mail ballot by mail or in a drop-off, you have to sign the backside of the ballot. And then that's compared up against your last signature in Department of Motor Vehicles. And so they'll take the 2 signatures side by side on a screen, and either through a machine or with a team of election judges, they'll compare up those signatures. And
wait a second. I got my driver's license like 20 years ago and then renew it automatically. I think my signature might be different, and who knows what it looks like. That's the check and balance that somebody's gonna look at these. Now, I've seen people do this at watching, and it happens this. When they look at those, that's the only check and balance.
That's the check and balance.
All right. Let me ask you this. This new voting law that John Hickenlooper signed, does a lot of things, including having same-day voter registration. And as you know, I moved down to Colorado Springs during the recall election so I could cast my ballot there, showing how wonderful the same-day registration law is. What's to stop somebody, let's play along with this, to go from place to place to place and grab those ballots, send them in, or use somebody's, that same mailroom, somebody's water bill, somebody's TV bill, because under state law, I don't need a photo ID, I just need a utility bill, which I could also find in that mailroom, right?
Right, any government document or utility bill or something with the address and the name on it.
That's ID.
That's ID.
So not only was Todd looking at ballots, but he was also going through possible IDs that he could use to go register.
Right.
All right, so let's say Todd fills those out, puts them in the mail, it's not him, grabs a couple of those utility bills, goes to a polling place on the day of, and says, that's who I am, I'd like to register, here's my ID. They give him a ballot. They gave me a ballot in Colorado Springs. I put the ballot into the box. It still gets counted, doesn't it?
Yes, you voted, and the ballot gets counted and gets shuffled with the rest of the ballots, and it's not traceable.
It's not traceable.
Right. So we can't go back and get that ballot when we find out something's happened.
All right, play with me a little bit more on this one.
Okay.
So I do this, and let's say I wasn't living in Colorado Springs. Let's say I was representing that I was somebody else because I just used their water bill or some other bill as ID, and you catch me. All right, you catch me, I'm impersonating another person. There's nothing that you can do to invalidate the ballot that I just submitted.
There's nothing we can do to invalidate the ballot if the only time that happens is in an election contest where there are enough votes that a candidate has shown are invalid to make up the difference between winning and losing. So let's say you lose an election by 5 votes. If you can go find 5 votes that shouldn't have been cast, you can demand a new election. And that's under the law, but you have to go find those 5.
But you have to go find those people,
Those 5 votes.
which is almost impossible to do.
Well, you don't have to find the people. You just have to find the votes. Well, or the people, I suppose.
How do you do that?
Well, you would have to do some research into maybe whether they registered and weren't validly living there, they registered and they shouldn't have voted in certain elections because of durational residency. Whatever the issue, if you could find enough ballots that had been cast, it doesn't matter how they were cast. You don't have to have the person come in and testify, I cast X.
How would you know that I stole your water bill? Most people don't vote. And I used that to register, and I voted under your name. Even if you caught me, that ballot still counts. So you might be able to punish me, but my vote still counts.
Right.
Correct?
Yes.
And I could be doing that all over town, from city to city, to polling place to polling place, with every water bill I find.
You could. You could be a serial vote fraud.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like. Tell me this law makes sense. Tell me that this is a good system. Is it secure in your mind? Is there integrity to this system?
We testified against the bill. We didn't feel that there was integrity in the system, but it's our job. We're the executive branch. We have to implement the bill as the legislature wrote it in the way that we can, to the best of our abilities. And we do have some rulemaking authority, and we've done some things that we think improve the system, but ultimately we have to go with the will of the legislature.
That's very diplomatic. I like that.
Thank you. Well, it's the
Would you
truth.
like to see this fixed?
We would. We would
What's
like to see.
the biggest problem with the new voting law? That if you could fix 1 or 2 things, what would those things be?
Well, administratively, one of the huge problems is this durational residency, because
Durational residency.
Right. You only have to live in Colorado for 22 days to vote. But if you, let's take Colorado Springs, move to Colorado Springs on the day of election, then you should only be able to vote in the statewide election questions. You shouldn't be able to vote in the school board race. You probably shouldn't be able to vote in the city race. But those issues of residency are different all over the code. 30 days for cities, 25 days for school boards, 31 days for special districts. So there are all these different residency dates, and it's very hard to track those. So that's one thing that administratively I'd like to see fixed. For same-day voter registration, we would like to see a requirement for a photo ID if you're going to register and vote on the same day. As far as mail ballots go, we have always believed it should be an opt-in. You shouldn't be required to vote by mail, or you shouldn't get a ballot, regardless of whether you vote, you want one or not. I mean, you're not required to vote by mail now.
We're running tight on time. I heard that the county clerks, and they're the ones that have to administer all this stuff, that they like this new law because balloting this way is so much less expensive. Was it?
We're seeing the budgets go up, and we're just analyzing that right now. The budgets between 2011 and 13 and 2012 and 2014. For example, in El Paso, last year they had 16,000 undeliverable ballots come back. This year they had 43,000. That's at a cost of $76,000 to the county.
2.5 times more ballots came back undeliverable.
Right. In Arapahoe County last year they had 7,200 ballots come back. This year they had 37,900 come back at a cost of $70,000 to the county. Right.
Nice.
So,
5 times more.
So I know that the Clerks Association supported it. I don't know how much support they had from individual clerks. That list was never released.
Suzanne, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. You're going to love this one.